We are here on Meet the Podcast. We took a break, but we're back, man. And I have I have a really good friend here. His name is Johnny Woodfield. Bro, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's been a while since I've talked for a long time on camera.
Yes.
Here we are.
And I came on his podcast in the beginning of the year. And, you know, a lot of things were talked about, which was fun. But I'm happy to have you on because there's a lot of things that, you know, we're going to talk about catching up. You know, I feel like we haven't talked them all either. So just want to ask, number one, just what's new? What's going on? Yeah, I feel like your life has like 1,000 different things. And, you know, I'm keeping up, but I would be like, what is happening in the universe of Johhny right now?
So much, man. Oh, my. So, you mentioned having had come on that podcast. All the podcast episodes from that channel have been unlisted. Mm-hmm. They're going to be re-uploaded onto another channel later.
Yeah.
But I want to say probably like April or May, I had a new vision for how I wanted the channel to go. And so we've kind of just completely revamped how we're doing all that stuff. And so a lot of random traveling to a lot of random places to shoot some videos. I mean, just got done filming a video where I swam in all 5 Great Lakes in a day a couple weeks ago, and then we'll be up in New York in a couple days. But yeah, that's the YouTube side of things. Personal life, man, it's been nuts. I just accepted a job as a worship pastor in my church in Illinois that has a campus in Iowa. So I don't know when I'll be moving up there, but sometime within the next several months I'll be moving up there. And yeah, just a lot of traveling, trying to shoot a lot of long form videos in a tight time frame as I can, because once I start that job at the church, traveling isn't going to be as available. So
yeah, you're going to be locked in. Be locked in. I mean, so in regards to being a worship pastor, I mean, that's a pretty big deal because I've been one for now. Fun fact, I got the worship pastor job when on my honeymoon. Okay. Yeah, they literally called me. And then so it's been almost 5 years. So I want to ask you, like, do you already know like what kind of leadership strategies that you want to do? What things you want to do from a you know, principle standpoint? What rules you want to set? Because like coming into something new, right? Mm-hmm. Like us being young, number one, people aren't going to, off the rip, just being real, people aren't going to have faith in you, and that's the way it is. And you know, because when you're young and you're coming into something and people are older than you, even if it's not everyone, you know, it takes time to gain that trust, and you have to earn that trust, right? So like, what is your thought process on leadership and really like forming, you know, that team bond to be more than just coming on Sunday and just, you know, just singing it?
Yeah. Something that I picked up from a worship leader in Texas when I was down living at the Air Force Base for a couple months there. Pentecostal worship leader at a no denomination, just like contemporary Protestant was the umbrella that we used for that church. Yeah. Because it was a church on base, and there were a lot of new people coming every week who had really no faith background or all different types of faith backgrounds. But something that the worship leader did at rehearsals every single week without fail is, and it sounds kind of silly, but she would ask the team to go around, and they go around and say if their life was a battery percentage, what percent would they be at right now? And when I got back from Texas, I was leading on a youth worship team, and I found that doing that, it allows people to open up and talk about the things that like are going on behind the scenes that they otherwise wouldn't have felt an invitation to talk about. I think a lot of times we can show up to a rehearsal on a Wednesday night or Sunday morning and just try to bottle everything up and like let's just get through like the songs in whatever technical way and make sure it sounds good, but understanding that there are people as well, like just like I have stuff going on at home, these people that are showing up, they're not just a guitar player, they're not just a drummer, they're not just a vocalist, they have things. And so I think opening up the door to be very comfortable to have those conversations off the rip, it just makes everything feel a lot more personal than it does making it feel almost like a business, because I've been in churches that have done that, and you just show up, do your thing, and leave, and there's no real connection behind the scenes there. And I think that translates even to like on Sunday mornings during the actual service. Like, you can tell when a team is locked in and they're doing life together versus, oh, they're just good musicians who happen to sound all right. So
I feel that, and that's a really good insight, bro. Of telling, and see, like, you can see whether if these are people that actually hang out outside of this, and there's an actual relationship versus where. Another thing that I want to ask you is, like, you're also going to be in a place where you're going to have to, like, basically. You're going to be more mature than adults, just because, like, you're going to be the leader, right? And so, like, I also would say, like, like, you're also going to have to deal with couples and families, and you're going to be invited to, a bunch of birthday parties and family reunions and a bunch of things like that. Like you seem like, at least from what you just said, I feel like you're in church that's hiring him. Please don't take this the wrong way. But to me, it feels like you're more excited for the relationships that are going to come out of this, right? And obviously the worship matters, and that's going to be your focus. But I do. It does seem like you are putting a big focus on building their relationships just first, and that's a pastor's heart, bro. That's a pastor's heart, because I mean, you and I both know that 20% of the job is just singing. The other 80% is actually pastoring the people, right? And that's and that's what can be super, super hard if you don't like people, and there's a lot of pastors that don't like people. But knowing you, I know you have a heart for people, so I'm really excited to see what's going on. So obviously, you and I have talked about this whole worship code thing. You know I was going to go there. You told me you have new thoughts. So I want to hear where your mindset is right now. And so just to give you guys context, so basically, Johhny hit me like probably 2 years ago, and him and I had a whole convo, and my whole point was, like, I think, like, and I want to rephrase this. I don't want to sound as rude and brash as you usually do. It's not that I don't think worship codes are useless. I just think that a lot of times they are replacements for what needs to be in the local church. And I think that a lot of people, they jump into these worship groups because they're not getting opportunities that they either, number one, aren't ready for, or number two, they just need to leave their church and go somewhere that's going to give them the opportunity. And the thing is that when you jump into things like that, if your character isn't ready to sustain the popularity and the responsibility, that's why all these groups break up, because you got big and famous, and you're traveling, and your character isn't prepared for that type of thing. So that was my whole point, guys. So, but I wanted to put that out there, just to make sure that, like, you guys don't think I'm just trying to, like, just throw out dumb takes. But I wanted to hear kind of where you're at with it, because at first you disagreed to an extent, but then Carter told me that your view has changed. So I want to hear what has changed over time, bro.
So what caused the change is me taking a step back and looking at just this region in general, and how church culture and worship culture is in this region. And the way I was able to do that is completely unplugging and just looking at it from the outside, looking at friends and family in this region. And so in, I think, January I finally just, like, I pulled the plug on the worship code, and the reason being is it just, like you said, the character side of things, like, so much drama just spun out because, like, and honestly, a lot of it kind of justified some of the complaints I was getting. I was living 1,000 miles away and trying to manage certain things, and it became very, like, like, almost like business minded. Like I was treating it almost like a corporation, and, like, I'm at the top and I'm making all these decisions. And so once I realized that it just had gotten too out of hand and it just wasn't reasonable to try to pursue it anymore, pulled the plug on it, and just really started pouring into my local church in Illinois. And looking at it from the outside in, like, There's going to be an awkward silence here while I choose my words carefully. I think. What do I think? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but where I think that the problem stems from is church culture in this region has become very, just from the outside looking in, I'm not in the same circles I was a couple years ago, but the church in this region, at least in northern Delaware, in southern Delaware, there's not as many, but it feels super oversaturated here. There's a church everywhere, and a lot of the same denominations of church everywhere. And then you start hearing about there's a new church plant here, a new church plant there, and then so I started to think about really why is that happening? Why is there a new church plant? And I'm not in these circles, but from the outside looking in, it's a lot of churches are getting started by people who weren't able to get to the lead pastor role at the church that they were at. And I've seen church splits since growing up, and a lot of times the result of the reason for that is because people want to be in charge, and then they can't be in charge, so then they leave and they go start their own thing. And so now we've created a culture in this area where people want to do their own thing, and a lot of times you have the proper setup where you have accountability within the church, but you set this culture up pastorally where the church looks at this, oh, he wanted to be in charge, so he just went and started his own thing. Well, what do the people on the worship team see when that happens? Is I want to do my own thing, so I'm just going to go leave and do my own thing. Now, most of the time, as a worship leader or just a player on a team, you're not going to be able to leave and then you're not going to go viral doing like your own original music. And some of these, that's another problem. Some of these groups, they don't write original music and they just do covers. And so the way that you can leave and do your own thing without actually leaving your church is to start one of these collectives, and then you bring in all these people from a bunch of different churches, and all of their focus is on this collective. And like, I know people personally who will jump up and down and say, yes, pick me, to play such and such an instrument or sing such and such songs. But they're nowhere to be seen on a Sunday morning. They're not volunteering. They're not getting plugged into their local church. And it's in my perspective, it's a result of people wanting to do their own thing. And so the worship collective is the easiest way to do that without ruffling as many feathers, because you're not leaving and starting your own church. You're just taking your focus away from your local church, and then you're starting these collectives. And then it's really easy to do that in this region because it's a super oversaturated church area. But we've got people now who are so quick to let me go play for this school or for this college, for this random place that we can bring a bunch of people together, and we're so focused on driving either ticket sales or just attendance. And when was the last time that they've had a one-on-one conversation with somebody in their church? When was you're seeing people care more about filling seats than you're seeing people care about discipleship. And like, you can lead people in worship. But I saw a worship leader friend, he reposted something, I think yesterday, and it just really hit me, is the Spirit is already in the room. Your job is not to bring the Spirit in. Your job is just to remind people that He's there. But how aware are you of the presence of God if you are just completely ignoring the Great Commission? The last thing that He said before leaving earth, go and make disciples. How many people do you think that are at these worship collectives have anybody that's calling them at 3 o'clock in the morning when something goes wrong? How many of these people have disciples that are being held accountable by them, and just being in those circles, not many. And I think that's where it gets super unhealthy. Is you can fill seats all you want, but those people, they're not getting discipled, and because they're chasing that camp high, that emotional feeling that a well-rounded song brings, but who can they call?
Exactly, and what you said is literally how I felt for the past 2 to 3 years now, 2 years, and I'm happy that you're at that place, because I mean it's honestly just maturity, because like. And my friend and me and Glenn, him and I were talking about this, and we were laughing. Is that like I kind of feel like an OG to an extent, because you guys are so young, and I'm like 26. So like I've gotten a taste of it a little bit, but I saw kind of where it was going, and with talking to my pops and other people, kind of made me back out. You know what I mean? And you are right, and you said a lot. So I do want to mention a lot. I do want to talk about Delaware in general, because you are not wrong. And I always say that Delaware is church planting hell. And the reason why I say that is because there's no way you're going to have a successful church in Delaware from getting new people, because Delaware's culture is church hop. It's a church hopping culture. So like, most people in your church, they are not going to be people that you find on the street, or people that are homeless, or people that have never been to church before. No, most church plans start by, okay, I like you more than my lead pastor, so I'm going to go to your church. And to me, I don't think that's a biblical reason to leave a community to join a new one. Yeah. No, you're just sick of seeing the same old, so you want to go and join somewhere that's new. You're going to serve there for 10 years, and then when you get sick of it, you're going to keep jumping on the same thing over and over and over. And so then you go from being like a solid, faithful Christian to a Christian Kim Kardashian, where it's a new boyfriend every single week. And Kim, I have nothing against you. Just use you guys as an example. But you were my crush when I was younger. Fun fact, right? Back when like Photoshop first started, dude, and I'll have to find them and send them to you. I have these like freaking like 180p photos, and Kim K's like in 4K, and I'm like 12, just standing in like a stupid hoodie. Anyways, but I mean, but you are wrong. Like, I do think some of the issue does start with pastors who have such a need to start something and to lead something, and I do think a lot of it, bro, isn't God. And I don't think that attendance means that it's God or not, but I do think that there's a lot of unordained church plants that are happening in this state. And where do they all stem from? Most of them stem from really large churches. And the pastor's mindset is usually like, yo, like I want to be and like one of the biggest prides of a pastor is being a pastor that plants successful churches. You know what I mean? But the reality is a lot of churches that have been sent out in Delaware have been duds. And and some of them fade out in the next 3 years, and some and then usually it ends, and then the pastor goes and pastors in like another state. So I do agree with that, but I think the reason why they don't plant, bro, is because people want to stay comfortable. Because like if God told me today to plant, I would go to PA. Personally, that's where I would go. I would go, and if someone still is, I'm fighting you. But I would go to like the Downingtown area, like right near Hershey, right before Lancaster-ish area. There's only one church around there. If I was a plant, that's where I would personally go, because I want to, like, me personally, I would love to be in the most liberal city possible, and I'm not talking liberal as in only political, but I would love to be in the most like liberal countercultural city ever. And I think that like that's where churches are needed. We need to be in those areas where and we were talking about liberalism as a belief, not the politics. We're not going down that road, but like I would want to be somewhere where it's so anti-God, where the light needs to be shown. And the issue with Delaware is that yes, we are a cultural liberal society, but the thing is that like we have a lot of pastors here. I think we have enough pastors. Like like Lifehouse covers a lot of Middletown, and I'm pretty sure there's like another church called like Ogletown, and like my dad's church, they just moved down there. Like there's a lot of churches everywhere, and I also think, bro, that churches also have to change their view of things, because I always think that like churches think that their job is to reach the world. That is not a sizable thought. You're not going to reach the world, but you can reach the area that you're in, and that's why like my commitment, like to First Baptist, is I want to see people in Newcastle come to Christ. Okay, some might come from Bear, some might come from Wilmington or wherever, but my job as a leader, right, is to reach the people in Newcastle. But I also think churches, number one, pastors don't teach that to their lay people, and so what happens is this need to reach the world, and what happens is we get this worldly ambition that comes with, you know, wanting to see your church grow, wanting you to grow. And so when pastors have that, worship people also adopt that same mindset. And so, and you are right, the version of planning a church for a worship person is to go into a worship collective. And it's because Maverick City is the one that really started. But we saw the flaw in that. And the flaw in Maverick was that they were ran by corporates. They still are. And, you know, and look, Ruslan, you know, I'm pretty sure he vouches for them, which is fine. But I will forever say, I think that any worship collective needs to be under church leadership, under church grounding. You know, Elevation, they have had their problems, and you can say what you want about them, but they're under authority, and I have to respect that. I mean,
and like to that, what authority do you think Brandon Lake is under? Because I've heard some crazy stuff from him recently. Like,
I was just at his church. I was at his church for my friend's. We were on my friend's bachelor's, and we actually went to his church in South Carolina.
Gotcha. Because I heard him say we need to stop writing music with like this Christianese language and talking about holy, holy, holy. Like we need to stop saying that, because he was talking about this in kind of correlation with the song Hurtful Hallelujah, which sparked all types of controversy. But he was like, ooh, those songs, these holy, 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 when people walk into a church and they hear that, it's not attractive to them. And like, so the cross to the world is foolishness. It's not going to be attractive to everybody. And if we lose that, like, this is such a rabbit hole.
So my viewpoint of it was, and I'm not assuming, but I am at the same time, because I don't care. That's how I am. Sorry, guys. Brandon, if you get mad, I love you. Brandon isn't around people enough, from saved to unsaved. Because here's the reality, is that you can blanket statement that all you want. You can change the wording. You can make church as comfortable to the unbeliever as you want. But the reality is, there comes a certain point where you have to call them out. You have to hold them accountable, and you have to tell the truth of what it is. And when that truth comes, that's when the Christianese come. And Christianese, as you want to say, is inevitable. And the reality is that we sometimes coddle people too much. And you know, and I've done this in primacy, right? So there's a student, and he got saved in youth group, and I knew that he was so anti everything. So and this was my total mistake. I coddled him. I kind of let him do his thing, and when he got a little too out of line, that's the one I called him out. And when he got baptized, and you know, and he started taking this, and by the way, I'm not saying baptism is a state. I'm not saying that like when you get baptized you're saved. You have to give a profession before you're baptized, make it sure. But after he got baptized and he told me to take his spirituality serious, I started holding him to the fire. And he got angry and left. And I really believe that if I held him to the fire from the start, and also had a conversation about that before Christianity, before he even took Christianity seriously, I don't think he would have taken the critique and holding him accountable to heart so much. And that's the problem with a Brandon Lake ideology. You're trying to avoid just the truth, and not the truth of the gospel, but you are avoiding the truth of Christian culture. I mean, and the reality is that, as I said, you can make it as cookie cutter, or you know, kind of sort of like the world, but not crossing over so much. But there does come a point to where like the Christianese is going to come out.
and it needs to, because the truth matters. Just blanket statement, truth matters. And if you're walking into a church on a Sunday morning and they're hiding the truth, if I walk into a church and I feel like they're hiding the truth, I'm walking out personally, because what's the point of being there at that point? Sorry, that was a rabbit hole. I do want to get back to the church plant thing, because you mentioned that you would go to PA.
Yeah.
And so, like, I hear a lot from this region that people they're called to either go plant a church in the middle of 5 different churches in a 10-mile radius, or they're called.
Say it.
And I don't want to sound like I'm judging and not believing that they're called. But how many pastors or people from churches have you heard say that they're called to go plant a church in Florida?
Yeah, I agree.
Are you called to plant a church in Florida, or do you just want to move there?
Exactly.
Because you could say, without any problem, you could say that you just want to move to Florida, and then just go move to Florida, and then you're not. Then what's it? But where are the people that are called to plant churches in the regions where there's
like Maine,
right,
New Hampshire,
just places where there isn't an overflow of churches in your denomination? Because if you go, there's plenty of non-denom churches here, but if you go to other regions, like even like close surrounding regions, like middle of nowhere PA, middle of nowhere Virginia, West Virginia, these people that their only options are like a one-room Methodist church or a Pentecostal church. Why are we not sending people out into those regions that don't have the? Because if you believe that your denomination is the closest aligned to Scripture, because that's why you're there. Otherwise, that's another problem. Why are you there if you don't believe that your denomination is the closest aligned to Scripture? If you really believe that, why aren't you trying to reach the regions that don't have that as an option?
Yeah.
And gosh darn it, I had a thought and I lost it. But
you're fine, and you're not wrong here, because but this is a part of the issue, bro, is that so many people, they like, how can I say this? They, in my opinion, being a church planter is going to where like it's kind of scarce. The gospel's scarce. Like Pastor Ron here, he inherited a church in Orlando. Okay, church had like 17 people or something. Boosted it up. This dude moved to West Virginia, bro. Started from the slums, bro. Started, and I think he was in his basement and grew his church to over 1,700, I think 2,000 people. Left that church, went to the other side of town, started another church that only grew to I think 500. You know what I'm saying? And
only.
Yeah, I know, right? Only, right? It's crazy to say even only. But like, to even think you could pull that in West Virginia, but like, that's where pastors are needed, bro. They're needed in cities like that where the gospel isn't like when is the last time we heard about a pastor going to California? You know, everybody's going to Texas or Florida, you know, and why? Because it's in the freaking Bible Belt. But there's a lot of states that need the gospel in these just crazy cities where, I mean, just the ways of life is just twisted, bro. And the question I have to a lot of the Delaware pastors here was like, is it truly faith if you are only getting people that are just jumping churches? Are you willing to sacrifice getting people to go to your church where they're not going to be making a lot of money? They're going to be poor, you know, and you might need to help them. Are you willing to have those type of people in your church to actually push the gospel to people that don't know Christ? And to me, it feels like, you know, the way that we market church, we're only evangelizing to Christians. It's not like we're evangelizing to the actual lost. And yes, there's a place for us. There's a place for Christians, right? Like, we should be there. But, you know, it's weird. Like, planting churches in areas that have successful churches, all you're doing is adding another Band-Aid to the big cut that is in these cities instead of actually going to the source of the pain. Yeah, bro. And so, like, I think all these planted churches and these good areas, they're just putting band-aids on top of the main stories. But I think, like, prime example, right? Everybody wants to play in Bear, Middletown, but the source of the pain is Wilmington. Like no one wants to play in the inner city, bro. You know what I mean? Like that's where the true pain is. And the reality is that you don't want to do it because you know what's going to happen. Your church is going to be small. You know, you're not going to get the production you want. You're not going to get the speakers you want. You're not going to get the things you want. But I believe God is more at peace, but I believe God is happier with the guy that's in the inner city reaching the people that need Christ more than the person that is in Bear in a nice area getting the same church hopping people.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me crash out at night. You know, and that's what, you know, and that's what frustrates me. It's like, and like, you know, and it all links back to this worship problem because of the fact. But I really think the main issue with that is like with worship codes. I think it's more of a character issue. That's kind of where I think it kind of stems from, because worship people are just so cocky, and I also think another part of that is because we have gotten our backs padded so much. Like, be honest, bro. How many people gave you props when you were young and singing?
Yeah.
Like, think about what you started singing in church when? What, 6, 5, 4?
I wasn't singing, but I was drumming around like 11.
11.
Yeah.
But like, imagine how many people came up to you? Yeah. Oh my God, the Lord. Like, and those things are amazing. Yep. But to a child, like, that's not productive. Like,
and like, there's nothing wrong with like if you're at a church and you see somebody young on the worship team, don't don't stop talking to them. But kids don't have like that psychology for understanding, because what is intended as I notice what God's doing in your life comes across to a young kid as I'm famous.
Yeah,
I'm getting. Look at all this attention that I'm getting, and especially if these kids aren't getting that attention at home. Now you've got an even bigger issue where they go to church now, not for God, not for the Spirit, not to serve, but they're going to church to fill the void that they're leaving when they walk out the door, and so they've kind of built this like I matter. And like, this became a problem with me, and I still struggle with this so often. A prayer that I have to pray every Sunday is like, God, help me to remember to point it all towards you. Any good job, any high five, any accolade, help me to remember that it isn't about me. As much as I could prep all week and put time in for a service, I wouldn't be doing any of it if it wasn't for him. Like, these aren't songs that I'm writing. This isn't a country like or any sort of like hip hop show. This is a worship service, and I need to remind myself, and I pray all the time to help me to remember to point it all towards him, because that doesn't come second nature to me. It's not quick, and that's a good point, because growing up in it, it's all I've ever heard is wow, you're doing great for your age.
Exactly.
And so now you've raised up people who it's not really their fault, but something Dr. Johhny says all the time, it's not your fault, but it's in your lap. It's your responsibility now.
It's a great quote. I'm still in that from you.
Yeah. And so like they've heard all their lives is they're great. And then it stops becoming as impressive because it becomes routine. And then, oh no, am I doing good enough? Am I good enough? Because I'm not hearing it all the time. I've been doing it with the same people. I need to reach new audience.
Yeah.
And so, I know Johhny just started a worship collective. I'm gonna hop on that. And then on the flip side of that, it's the people who've been practicing all their lives and have been really refining their craft, but they've never served, they've never used it, and then they're friends with somebody who's been serving all their lives, and that friend who's been serving all their lives, they're like, wow, you're really good. And then you get put on a stage, and then once again, they don't have a psychology for that level of this is about me, and now it's all I can think about. I'm waking up in the morning, I need to practice that way I can get another good job, another attaboy, and it's so harmful. And this all like really, if you want to go deeper into this, social media is not helping at all.
100%, bro, because you can go viral off of anything. And so then what's happening is, right, the celebrity view is getting shown, not the glory of God is not being shown through your work, you know? And it's weird how the pendulum swings, like, because, like, if you go back in church history, no one wanted to be a pastor because they would get killed for it.
Yeah.
No one wanted to lead worship, but they would get killed for it. Nowadays, you know, everybody wants to be a pastor because it's a good business plan. Like, I'm going to upload, and that's why, like, now, and that's why I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this. But, like, you know, I'm going to upload clips that are maybe connected to, like, my youth group pages or, like, stuff like that to reach students. But, like, I don't want to make my own content anymore because I'm like, because, like, I made this whole plug channel where I was like, you know, I'm just going to crash out all the time for fun, whatever. But then God God convicted me on. He was like, but, like, what are you doing this for? Like whose platform are you really building? And, you know, that's kind of where my heart has been, is like, you know, like, I understand, you know, make content to reach the world, but if I'm not reaching the people outside of my church, outside of my house, I mean, what is the point of me going on the internet, you know, to do these things? And this is where I need the local church to come in to these kids and teenagers, say, hey, I understand that God is working on you. I get that. But your character isn't ready for what you think you're prepared for. And we are now in a place to where, you know, talent means everything. Character means nothing. And what we need more in churches is we need men and women that are able to, you know, steward character well. And that's where, and that's kind of where my role has been with, you know, like, as you saw that we have on Sunday, I have, you know, Sarah and Dallas. Those are Dallas is 19, Sarah is, you know, 16. And what I've been trying to do is, like, steward their character. Well, even Carter, while he's here, Carter has great character, so it's not that hard to steward. But it's like you have to steward that character, so they're not getting too much in their heads about, you know, what's going on. But that's where this thing is so dangerous, because I do believe a lot of it starts from a really great place, you know.
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of us are going to go to heaven, and Jesus is going to be like, you didn't reach the least of these, though. You reached the ones that were already, like, secure. And then on the other side, from a churchgoer standpoint, people are using worship nights as creatine, as pre-workout. You know what I mean? And like, it's like this. People use worship nights as, like, so you work out, right? You know that we cannot diss eating food and just drink protein shakes every day. We have to go to the hospital if that happened. And I think with worship nights, that's the protein shake that everyone is digesting instead of going into their Bible. Instead of setting an actual schedule around Christ, you want to go to these random spontaneous things because people only think that Jesus is holy in a spontaneous setting. When God honors scheduling, God honors taking time out to you know, value him. But that all falls back on the worship leader that lives the same life, but they fake on the stage that they're holier than thou, because God is so powerful that God will use anybody because he's that powerful. But just because God is using you, and this is the hard truth, guys, this is the hard truth, and this is biblical, because God even used Saul. God can use you, and you are not right with him whatsoever. God's usefulness of a person doesn't always define their quiet time and spirituality with God. And that's just a fact.
And I have a friend who I randomly saw him in a Salvation Army one day, and we started talking about this culture of spontaneity in church, and he has a view that kind of made me stop and think. He said, I think a lot of spontaneity in churches, spontaneous worship nights and things of that nature, a lot of that spontaneous feel is a distraction from discipline, is a reason to throw discipline to the side, because the spontaneous moments feel so good. That once every 6 months worship night, that feels so good, and so they're using it as an excuse to get rid of discipline. And I forget, I hate quoting people that I don't know who they are, but I heard somewhere you can't expect a pastor to talk to you, to speak into your life. You can't expect to hear something new without reading scripture.
Yeah.
Because that discipline, that back end, that 99% of the other time, because how much time does a pastor really have with you on a Sunday morning? An hour. And also he's not just talking to you. And so you get 1 hour of whatever sermon that the pastor's preaching, and maybe it hits you, and maybe it's something that you haven't heard before. But you're not going to understand a majority of it if you just throw away the discipline. You're there for that 1 hour a week. You're there for the once every 6 months worship night. You're not there for discipleship. Bible studies do actually matter. I remember I was really struggling getting through the book of Acts. Like I was like chapter 15 or 16 maybe. I was just like beating my head against the wall, because I would read, and I like to study in King James Version, so that's probably half my problem.
Yeah.
But I'm reading, and I'm just like, okay, my mind's trailing. And it just so happened that a college group, this is a few months ago, a college group was doing a Bible study on the book of Acts, a chapter a week, and they just dissect verse by verse by verse. And so that community of actual, like, intentional getting into scripture, it helped me understand the book of Acts far more than a 1 hour sermon could ever. And so we're chasing, like you said, that almost like a dopamine effect of just like, okay, if I can go to a sermon, or I can go to a worship night, and I can feel, just if I can just get a taste of what it's like, then I'll just keep coming back, and that's enough. And eventually you get people who then those people who are only doing those one-off experiences, then they're like, well, maybe they hear a sermon about serving, and they're like, well, maybe I should get plugged in, maybe I should serve, and they're trying to pour out an empty cup because there is no refilling it on any day of the week.
Yeah. Because the actual true meaning of this is really being an evangelist. That's the disciplined meaning of what people are trying to do. But people aren't trying to evangelize, because evangelists go to the poor part, and there's a pattern, bro. And the main thing that I'm saying is that no one wants to go to the poor parts. No one wants to go to the Ninevehs, to be exact, where the places need worship, And like, even when I see the jail stuff, okay, it's great, but these people you're taking to in jail are mostly like saved people. It's like, when are we going to stop? And I think there's a space for it, but like, we cater so much to it, and it's put so much on the internet when there's people that really don't know Christ, and like, we're not doing a good job of it. And it all starts with this pastor, this preaching, or this pastoral responsibility that is superseding the will of God, and we're seeing too many failures because of it. But also the same thing with the worship culture. It's like, it's this superseding in. And as a young Christian, like, the most humbling thing for me is like, right now, like, do I get these spurts where I want to go plant? Of course I do. Okay, like Like I don't even I'm a pastor at a Baptist church, and I don't even classify myself as a Baptist, because anything that people will want to put in front of the word Christian, I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, my dreams for a church is that, I think we can integrate, spaces of like things that Catholics do that are in line with scripture, things that the Orthodox does, things that Presbyterian. I think there's pieces of everything that we could put into one church. And is that a goal of mine one day? Of course. But I know that as a 26-year-old that's having a child next Saturday, like, it's just not the will of God for me to ditch that right now and go and plant a church. Yeah. Even if I had the money, it's just like, and this is why quiet time to Jesus and having a relationship is so important. Because if you really were in tune with Jesus Christ in your quiet time and prayer, you would know what your limits are. And the in my time of just doing this, the most unstable people, bro, are the people that jump too much. And I think there's a season of jumping, because I had my season of jumping. Like, I was at church for a while. The pastor started preaching that conservatism was the way of God. I'm out. Yeah. So I dipped out of there, and it's a church that actually, but we won't say the name. They have a new pastor now. He's cool. But so I left there, and then I started serving at my friend's church because I just needed somewhere to go to figure out what God's plan was. And I was serving at her church, and it was a charismatic church. Yeah, yeah, pretty insane. Talking about the spiritual blanket is over the people, and I'm sitting here like, oh, that's not biblically sound.
Yeah,
But so then he pressed me about the pastor pressed me about membership, and I was like, dude, I would never join here. Like, this church is just, so unbelievable, whatever. And then, I was kind of trying to find a church, and then First Baptist hit me up, right? And then, I prayed to God. I said, look, I'm here for a long time. I've been here for 5 years. But because, bro, and that's the thing, bro, God honors consistency. God honors faithfulness. God honors stewarding where you are. And size isn't always the definition of fruitful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took Pastor Philip from 2819 Church almost like a decade to figure it out. He lost his building, bro. Had to go back to a high school to figure it out, And if a lot of Christians our age are able, and I blame this on the old people all the time. I always blame the old people because they don't teach this. But if people in our generation were able to understand, lay freaking low. Don't do too much. Learn how to have good character. Yep. Take the time to learn your Bible. Take time to talk to people that don't know Christ. Understand the main things of why people don't share. Like, take the time so when the time comes for you to really take the stage, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
That's what needs to be taught to these people. And when churches are only focused on as long as he's in church, that's all that matters. That is not all that matters. We could pull 10 drummers from all these churches right now, and I bet you if we asked them one simple question, explain to me the gospel, they wouldn't be able to. The only one that I can know off the top of my head that could is Carter. Other than him, we could pull all of them and say, tell me the gospel. I bet you less than 50% of them will know the gospel. That's the issue.
Yeah. Chasing stages. I was talking about like the internet it was like, what have it been, 2 weeks now? 2 weeks ago, I was at a youth camp, and we were talking about all the all the pitfalls of chasing that stage on social media, chasing the followers and things of that nature. Something that this leader said, she was like, people need to realize that not everyone, it's twofold. Not everybody is called to reach the people on the internet. Just like if you're called to be in Newcastle, Delaware, you are not simultaneously called to be in Minot, South Dakota. You're just not. People are called to be on the internet, to reach those people, but not everybody is. I probably, if you did that poll from all the worship teams and the pastors in this region, how many of them have their social media account where they're posting clips, like clips from sermons? They've got drum cams, guitar cams, and things of that nature, and it's just. Not everybody was called to do that. But at the same time, there is a need for that because there are some people who are just genuinely chronically online. Yeah. That they'll never leave that space because that's their home. So it is... I do get kind of frustrated when I hear people say, oh, everybody just needs to get off the internet. Well, so everybody isn't going to get off the internet. Everybody isn't going to get off of social media. Those people do still need to be reached, but not everybody needs a platform. And I like what you said about stay low or lay low. I see too often people going viral. They'll have one good clip from one good sermon and they'll go viral and they'll have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, and they can't answer simple gospel questions. And like, it's cool that you have all that stuff, but now it's just noise. Now it's just distraction because there's no substance to it.
Yeah. And that's why I love people like a Ruslan. That dude is not. He's really smart. Like he's a smart guy, and he's being held accountable by his own pastor. Like he did a podcast with Church Candy, I think, and him and his pastor. You should watch it. Him and his pastor were both on, and his pastor's involved in his content creation, like in reviewing some of the stuff that Ruslan thinks is questionable. Like, but Ruslan isn't a pastor because he understands where his role is at. Yeah, and and that's the other thing. I guess that hurts culture in Delaware, that people don't know what their role is. Like, and that's why John MacArthur. Like, as much as I disagree with Calvinism to an extent, I love some of it, not all of it. But one thing I love about him is that in almost every interview, he says, I have a calling by God to preach the gospel. That is my main calling. He was like, I was given to that by God himself. Like, that's what I know. I know what I'm here to do. And that's what a lot of Christians don't know what they're here to do, And yes, we're all called to give the gospel, but the question is how. Some are called to preach. Some are called to do it by worship. So some are called to do it by leading a small group. Some are called to do it by one-on-one. Some are called to do it by working at their job. Some are called to do it by feeding the poor. Some are called there's different ways that we are called to do it, but a lot of people have the same calling. And that's where, and the thing that's being avoided, bro, is going out into the slums and helping those people. So...
And Ruslan, as an example, like, he's 40 something, like 43, I think. I remember him last saying, like, and he's only just become popular in the Christian social media space in the last several years. I know he did like rap and stuff, but that's a lot of time to live a lot of life, to have a lot of experience, to learn a lot, to where when questions are asked, he said, what's that scripture? Always be prepared to give an
account. Is it an account or argument? I know you're talking about. I know.
But always be ready to explain what it is you're talking about. And that's something that I really am not a fan of, and love what Cliff and Stewart are doing, because they are still pouring into their local church, and I think it's Connecticut or something. Yeah, they're still pouring in there, but people are seeing that. They're seeing them go viral, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to go to college campuses now. I'm just going to go scream to people. I'm just going to go street preach the gospel." And then you get one hard hitting question, and it's like, I don't know. And there is, I would rather the answer to be I don't know. Yeah. But a lot of times the answer isn't I don't know. And you start yapping. It's whatever it can ramble off, and then now once again it's just noise. Yeah. And
that's why I love people like Elijah Lamb. Where like he's young, he's like our age, but he loves his local church, And I don't think and the way he talks, I don't think he'll ever leave his local church, right? But that's the love that I want to see. And you are right though, like. The biggest thing, and like when students ask me questions, dude, I will say, dude, I have no stinking clue. And then and sometimes I'll tell them like my thought process on it, like this is what I'm thinking right now, but I don't know. I'll be like, I'm gonna ask Pastor Ron. If you don't know, I'm gonna ask somebody else. If I don't know, ask somebody else. And then if they don't know, just pray. And just pray that they never re-ask the question again. Right. And sometimes I'll just chat GBT just to see what it says. I'm like, let me just see what
99% of the time it's saying something
out of context.
Insane.
Out of context. Yeah. But yeah, bro, like and that's where I think we are at, bro, with definitely Delaware culture. I think that Delaware culture is everybody just wants to do the same things, but they don't want to go through church leadership to get it done. That's why we have a lot of people that speak, but they're not pastors. A lot of people that worship, but they're not worship pastors. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's why I said I feel like an old head a little bit, because I've been through fire. I've been through church splits. And that's something. Like, these people haven't experienced a church split. Have you experienced that? Yeah. People haven't experienced, a lead pastor or someone that you love getting a divorce. People haven't experienced death. People haven't experienced, any of those types of things that if you're in a true family, you go through. Like, you haven't experienced a person that you're close to has a random heart attack. You don't know how it happened, and then now you're on your way to the hospital. Like, people haven't experienced that. And when you don't experience these close things, it's hard for you to not, or it's easy to not love the local church because you haven't been a part of a real community. Mm-hmm. And until you and that's on both stances from the mega church level all the way down, because I think you can still have an in-depth community in a mega church. I really do. But when you don't experience these in-depth tight relationships, it's hard to sympathize with the local church, and that makes people want to go and do their own thing. I have so many relationships here that if God called me and Emily to go somewhere else, I would be devastated. As much as I would maybe enjoy it a little more, just because you would be, I guess, be the guy, right? But like, it would be devastating for me and Emily to leave, no matter if it's today or 10 years from now, because we have long-lasting, lifelong relationships here. You know what I mean? And that is a part in our age group that they're missing. It's like all of my friends, like, I think something will be wrong if, and this might be controversial, but like, I have best friends that don't go here, but a bunch of my closest friends in the world do go here. You know what I mean? Because I built that solid, relationship.
And that stuff also isn't really being taught in Bible college. And so, like, these are experiences that you can't replace with any sort of academia or not. They have to be experienced. I was talking to a worship pastor like 2 weeks ago about this, and he was talking about the things that he wish Bible college could have taught him, but didn't. And I don't think they could have. Like, what do you do when you're the guy giving a funeral? Like, what do you do when, like you said, like when a pastor gets a divorce or the church splits? And like, these are things that the people that are educated, the people that go to Bible college, they don't get taught how to do this. So the people that aren't taught and aren't ordained ministers, they're definitely not.
Yeah.
And so such a big importance of laying low. And like, I'm 20 years old. Like, I don't believe that there's an age requirement for it. It's just experience. And a lot of times see people who go to church only for a couple years, they're new and they're on fire, and then it's like, okay, I keep doing. There's nothing left for me to do. What's the new best thing that I could do to keep the ball rolling? And then worship co or we're starting a new church. And so I think the church needs to do a better job at lead pastors, as Paul, need to be intentional about raising up a Timothy, about raising up somebody who's able to go and make disciples. And like, those relationships are hard to leave,
100%.
But there are some people where it's necessary for them to leave, because as hard as those relationships are to leave, there are people in communities without those relationships that won't get them unless a church plants deep roots into these communities. And imagine the deepest relationships you have here. There are people out there who, if one family member dies, they don't have anybody.
Yeah.
And who do they call? Because they don't have that local church. And 100% do believe as well that big churches, mega churches, can have those deep communities. The church I go to, a lot of people go there, and I also have several people that I can call.
Yeah.
If something were to go south, and also there are people there that I hope and pray would call me if something went south for them too. And so it is hard to leave those relationships. But I don't think it's a lot harder to understand the relationships that people are missing if you haven't first had them.
So. Exactly, bro. And that's, and a lot of those things matter, and those are things that are missed from a lot of young people when they jump on the road and travel automatically. one last thought I want to leave you with here before we go is that I've also been thinking about. I also been saying this for years, but it's kind of left my mind. So I want to throw this on you. Is that I also think that planting might be also another way of pridefulness, because a lot of churches are dying, and I do think that there's less inheriting happening and more starting your own thing. The question that I've gone to God about is, are we honoring the church by restarting our own things to have our own rules instead of going into places that have buildings already, that might have 15 to 20 people? There might be a set of rules, but you are respecting that to rebuild what has been done before. And I'm not saying that all plants are bad, not saying that. That'd be stupid to say. But I also do think that, like, another part of this thing too, from a pastoral standpoint, is that there's not a lot of revitalization going around, but there's a lot of restarting. You know, like there's not a lot of reboots, but there's a lot of like restart, a lot of starting new. And I think that this next wave, I think of churches, I think planting is dying. I really do. And like, that's why, bro, if I was to plant, it would have to be in a whole different it would have to be in and I think for a plant to work, number one, for a plant to work in Delaware, you have to be so different from what everyone does, which I think would be kind of easy, because all these churches are the same, just being real. Same style of preaching, same thing. They sing 3 songs, whatever. But you have to do it entirely different, right? You have to be like darn near where people will call you heretic. And I'm not saying like you're biblically being unsound, but you would just have to be so out, like so different, right? But I think that like there is also that place of the church that's been ignored, is like there's people that need pastors. 60-year-olds that need to be pastored. And yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you're going to have to put up a fight, but that's a part of the ministry too. It isn't always about making your own rules and you know and making your own limitations, but like I also think there's humility in coming into something that has legacy, you know, like you know, and even if you're reading Romans, right? I mean, when Paul is writing to the Roman people, legacy is one of the most important things to Romans, because I mean, the whole entire Roman Empire was built on legacy after. I mean, you know, and it was built on, you know, I'm going to pass this kingdom down to you. I am going to pass my land and all of my worth down to you. And when you read Romans, you can see in the way that Paul is writing to the people, he's writing from a context of legacy, you know. And I think that like us as a pastors, you would be more humble walking into some of these rooms if there's legacy that you have to follow. And some of that legacy is good, some of that's bad. But like pastoring churches needs to be looked at as, this is my fingerprint to a large painting that is being painted. A lot of pastors think that they're painting half of the freaking canvas, and instead of putting their fingerprint on this canvas to allow hundreds and thousands of other fingerprints to take their place. My biggest fear about elevation isn't while Furtick is the pastor, it's after he's done. My biggest fear of transformation church isn't while Mike Todd is there. My fear is after he's done. My biggest fear of Life Church isn't a problem because Craig has like kind of worked himself out, smart guy. But like my fear of a lot of these, and I'm not saying that they're doing a bad job pastoring, but when you gather so much influence like that, people just aren't going. Like it's just the fact that when you're done, people are going to go, and the question is, what do they do? Yeah. The positive side is, they're probably going to go to smaller churches, help out, whatever. But the other side is people are just going to stop going. You know what I mean? And I think as pastors, we're also responsible for that too. Yeah. You know, so I say all that to say that character matters, but also how you position yourself in the local church. I think God's going to question us about that. Yeah. Can this thing run without you there? Yeah. And I know you, so I know that's one of your goals, is that this thing can function without you, because who knows what can happen to you. I mean, dude, I'm pretty sure you're going to take vacation, right? You're going to take a couple of weeks off. Hopefully you have a girlfriend or a wife at that point, so we can double date, and then I can force you to watch my child while we're having fun in Illinois. I'm gonna be like, oh, here's Grayson, go watch it for a few hours. This is the test drive for right now. But I'm just saying, you think I'm playing? I'm literally gonna go out there and make him watch my baby while me and Emily are like sightseeing or something. But like, that's the goal, right? Is like, and I think God honors when things can run without us.
To raise up a Timothy, but also to submit yourself to a Paul as a Timothy. So if you leave and the whole place falls apart, the place isn't built on God then.
Yeah,
it's built on who Stevie is, on who Johhny is. And that's a dangerous place to be, and it all kind of circles back to, like, what do you internally believe about the place? Because if you've been raised up in this and you've been getting the pats on the back the whole way up, I think subconsciously you can find yourself believing, this does all fall on me. This whole place does rest on my shoulders, and that's a dangerous place to be. I haven't thought about that like a Furtick leaving an elevation, like
when he hangs it up. I mean, the church cooked. I mean, the only way it wouldn't be cooked is if you literally got Mike Todd himself to take it. That's the only way, is if you got someone that leverages that much influence. Yeah, he's kind of wild. He's kind of wild. But like, I'm just saying, like, in regards to like influence, like, you have to get someone that big to do it, and the options that are hard. But like, when I look at like a Rich Wilkerson from VU, I can see that he's setting up his succession plan already. And I'm not saying that he's pouring into a person, but he's pouring himself into his team. They don't need him anymore to function. By the way, Rich is one of the best church leaders. Very underrated. Isn't talked about enough. But like, even and people might have I'm just using anybody right now. I even look at, what's his name? Church Home. Judah Smith. The way they run their church is very weird. Have you seen the way that they run it? This church home thing, church at home, is it's weird. Just take a look at it. It's super weird, right? But like, I can tell that he is trying to empower the next people up. And right now, I'm not talking about Billy Sound. I'm not trying to argue that, but I'm talking about just from a leadership standpoint. You can see who's being groomed for next up. Like John MacArthur Church. I don't think they're going to lose a beat, bro. I don't, because the church was never built on him. Like, yes, he was a amazing preacher, but he wasn't the only one. Well, actually, no, that man preached a lot. But I was looking at some of the people that came and preached, and the crowd was still the same. People still showed up because he didn't build that congregation on just his knowledge and on just his view of, I mean, I heard jokes that he was the reincarnation of, John Calvin. Just joking around. But like, he didn't build that just on him. It was on the solid rock of Jesus Christ. And us as pastors and as leaders, that's where we need to be. So, all right, we're going to wrap up here, guys. Hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Please like, subscribe to John. What is your YouTube channel name?
Just Johnny Woodfield.
Johnny Woodfield. Sub to him. He does fun challenges. And next time we're definitely going to talk about some content. I'm sorry we didn't even get to it, but I'm happy that you got to come on, that we got to talk. I appreciate your friendship. I mean, I think we're growing to be really good friends, and I'm excited to see what God does with you in Illinois, man. So I can't wait to come out and force them to watch my kid in the next year or two. But have a great day, guys, and peace out.